Welcome to today's workplace series. Recently, I was watching a video with a leader who was trying to quell concern about a change that was being made. But as people were posing questions, and genuine questions, they became defensive. The result? People withdrew. They pulled back from the conversation. Why? Because they were fearing the consequences of raising the issues and concerns that they had. Now, it's likely that you will have seen that play out at some stage in your career. What's happening is people don't feel psychologically safe to speak up, so they don't. That doesn't mean the issues go away. The issues just go underground. Now, in Australia, companies, business owners are now legally required to manage the risks of psychosocial hazards in the workplace. But putting aside the legal need to do this, managing and creating that psychologically safe environment, an environment where people feel safe to be themselves, safe to speak up and talk about things, safe to share ideas, safe to challenge, that's just good business practice. Because when we don't feel safe to speak up, that can impact how we feel. That can impact and exacerbate mental health issues. And we already know when we look at the litany of data across workplaces about the prevalence and growing issue of mental health issues in the workplace. And if you don't have a mentally healthy workplace, that impacts productivity, it impacts engagement, it impacts outcomes. So creating that safe environment is a really good thing to do. But what does it, psychological safety mean? Because we certainly hear the term bandied around a lot. And most of the work that really defines this in an academic and research sense comes from the work of Professor Amy Edmondson of Harvard. And in it, she talks about, psychological safety isn't just about being nice. It's about giving candid feedback. It's admitting mistakes. It's learning from each other. It's having very clear roles and responsibilities. It's consistency and how you hold people to account. It's knowing that your leader's not going to embarrass you, and where there's mutual trust and respect. And most importantly, it's where you feel comfortable to turn up and be yourself so that you can contribute in the way that you can best contribute to the outcomes of the team and the organization. Of course, you don't have to look too far to find evidence of psychological safety not being present. If you look to Gallup research, which comes out every year, and the level of dissatisfaction that many employees have with their leaders. Similarly, there's Australian-based research which shows that a good portion of people at some stage in their career will experience discrimination, bullying, social isolation at work. None of which is going to create an environment where your team are going to turn up, perform, be at their best, so that you actually get good outcomes. So where do you start? The first thing is to create that environment which is based on you genuinely caring for your team. And so when you do that, you understand them. You understand who they are, you understand what their needs are, you create clarity, not confusion. You're consistent in how you show up and how you hold people to account. Now, it's easy for some people to say, but if you're going for that kind of caring organizational culture, that means you're not focused on profitability. You're not focused on sustainable outcomes. But when you genuinely care about the people that you work with, that is absolutely focused on sustainable outcomes. Because when your customers, your clients are happy, it's more likely that your team members are happy, and that's going to deliver better outcomes. You also want to build that framework to ensure that everyone in the team is on the same page around common goals, clarity around challenges, and clarity around expectations of how you deal with failure and uncertainty. And so you are very clear. You talk to your team continuously around goals, responsibilities, ways of working. And you also welcome differences of opinion. As the leader, you're curious, humble, open to ideas, open to the fact that perhaps you don't have all the answers. You're willing to ask questions and let your team ask questions. You listen with good intent. You want to create that shared environment where everyone can turn up and be their best. But you also set the standard. And by setting the standard, you as a team get together and you're very clear about your ways of working and how you're going to work together. But then when you set that standard, you follow it. You behave in a way that aligns with that standard so that there's no disparity, no misalignment between what you say matters and what your behavior is demonstrating that actually matters. And you also support your team. You understand, particularly at the moment, we're living in uncertain times. There are pressure points, and different people in your team are going to respond differently to those pressure points. You role model those self-care behaviors that enable you to turn up. And then you're really asking your team, what practices do we need individually and collectively so each of us can turn up and be our best? Now, none of this happens overnight, and none of this is one and done. It is something that you need to continuously focus on. And you're doing it not just because some piece of legislation is telling you to, doing it because you really want to create an environment where you can thrive and your team can turn up and thrive too. Because that is the basis of an influential team environment where you get more done, your team gets more done, and therefore your organization prospers as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you doing to create that safe, productive, healthy, thriving work environment? Share your comments below. Have a great week.